Hello, welcome back to Between the Hashes, our weekly college football prediction show. I'm your host, Matt Keim, coming to you from Los Angeles, California, and this week we are going to be coming back to a team that I have been harping on for about the last 2 or 3 weeks now, the Kansas Jayhawks. Can they do it? Can they keep their streak going? Or will TCU take control of the Big 12 in what has been a very competitive race so far? Let's find out. So this is a pretty significant game for Kansas. They have the college game day thing going for them. They have their first 5-0 start since 2009. Never mind the fact that they lost 7 straight after starting 5-0 that year. They have a chance to make a bowl game for the first time since 2008, and the first chance to compete for the conference title since 2007. It really should not be understated just how bad Kansas has been in that interim time. This is their first time winning more than 3 games in over a decade. One of the reasons why I keep picking them for my underrated games of the week, if you've watched any of the previous videos, is because this has been like a super underrated storyline, is Kansas, and there's another team I'm going to talk about that has been making a kind of resurgence later in this video, is that they're being led by a special player at quarterback, Jalen Daniels. He's responsible for 16 touchdowns, 11 passing, 5 rushing. He's only turned the ball over once with 1 interception. And he basically, as he goes, this team goes. Lance Leipold, who is a second-year head coach for Kansas, he's coming from D3. There's some rumors that now with the Wisconsin job opening up, he has connections back there. There's rumors that he might be a candidate for that job, but it also sounds like Wisconsin is about to make an internal hire, so who knows? There's already noise about Lance Leipold going to a different school just because winning even 5 games at Kansas is nothing short of a miracle. Not even like Kansas has been recruiting really well and it's just starting to kick in. They were consistently at the bottom 5 of the P5. Even recently under Leipold's tenure, they were like 117th in overall recruiting. Now, they're coming off of a very, very close call against what probably is the best defense they've played up to this point, one of the best defenses they'll probably play until whenever it is that they play Oklahoma State or Baylor. And so they squeaked out a 14-11 win over Iowa State at home, and it was really the first time that we saw their offense struggle a little bit, especially if their offense sputters out in the second half like they did against Iowa State. You could be in for a long day against TCU. But what's at stake is bowl eligibility for the first time in almost 15 years. I've said before when talking about Kansas, I do think that the dream is going to end sometime relatively soon as they start playing a more difficult schedule, especially as they still haven't played Oklahoma State, they still haven't played Baylor, they still haven't played Oklahoma, and they still haven't played Texas. So those 4, and then TCU, and hell, even Texas Tech looks competitive at certain points. I have no idea who's going to win this conference. But frankly, regardless of how Kansas finishes their season, they should make a bowl game, and that is nothing short of amazing for this program and where this program can go from here. Now, the other side, TCU. TCU is led by first-year head coach Sonny Dykes. He is a very, very experienced head coach, having had stints at Cal, at SMU, and now he is Gary Patterson's replacement for TCU. And so far, so good. They're off to a 4-0 start. And it's really the job that Sonny Dykes faces at TCU is not an easy one. Gary Patterson oversaw multiple rounds of conference realignment, oversaw kind of the development of TCU into somewhat of a G5 power, going to the Rose Bowl, going to multiple high-end bowls, Fiesta, Rose, Peach, etc. And so he's replacing basically the best coach TCU has ever had. And the guy coached there as a head coach since 2000, was an assistant for a few years even before that. So how do you replace someone who the program was based around Gary Patterson? So how do you replace that? Well, they're off to a good start. Max Duggan, their quarterback, leads the second-rated offensive attack in terms of overall yards and points per game, and they're only second to Ohio State. So this is a high-flying team, and they're a little bit more battle-tested than Kansas. They beat Oklahoma down. That game was not as close as even as the score indicated. Can they keep that momentum from that week going into this? And a very unusual college game day. Max Duggan has thrown for 11 touchdowns, and one of the interesting things about researching into this game is that TCU's defensive numbers are only slightly better than what Kansas has done. Like, they're giving up something like 18-ish yards less per game. Their defensive numbers are similar. I think this is actually a very even matchup. I think we're going to see a lot of fireworks here. As far as my prediction goes, I could very easily be wrong about this, but I think TCU gets the win here. I just trust them a little bit more. They're a little bit more battle-tested. Regardless of how down Oklahoma is, they're a much better win than anything Kansas has faced. So I just kind of trust that as opposed to Kansas. And so I think TCU wins, but Jalen Daniels and that offense, if they don't hit a slump the way they did with Iowa State, I think they stay in this game all the way into the end. And I would be a little bit surprised to see a double-digit final score, one direction or the other. So I'm going to say TCU wins, but Kansas covers. Okay, our lightning round. There's a couple more ranked matchups this week happening, and I want to talk about them. So let's leave the Big 12 for a minute and go to the SEC. We have Tennessee at LSU. Tennessee's offense has been a well-oiled machine, led by Hendon Hooker. Meanwhile, LSU is coming off of a wild come-from-behind victory over Auburn. I just don't trust LSU here. I think Tennessee wins this game. The other ranked matchup, Utah versus UCLA. While the game is in LA, I think I trust Utah just a little bit better to right the ship. I think I lean Utah here, but as always with the Pac-12, who the heck knows? Okay, next round, let's go back to the Big 12. We have the Red River rivalry with Oklahoma and Texas, and this is the first time since 1998 that both teams in this game are unranked. But I imagine that won't be the case for too long. I think Texas wins this game, and as Quinn Ewers gets healthier, I think they'll find their way back into the rankings and Big 12 contention. This will be the first year in, I think, 6 or 7 years that Oklahoma will be knocked out of Big 12 contention before the end of October. USC versus Washington State. This is a surprisingly big line for a USC team that has kind of not entirely shown up against inferior talent. Oregon State took them all the way down to the wire. Arizona State hung around for longer than they should have, especially given how much of a mess Arizona State is. I think USC wins, but I think this game is way closer than the 13-point spread, so keep an eye on this one. And now we get to our underrated game of the week. This one is a little bit weird. I am not picking this game because I think there's going to be fireworks. Whatever the under is, I don't know off the top of my head. Whatever the under is on this game, take the under. Take the under. Illinois is a very interesting story to me. They're led by head coach Brett Bielema, returning to the Big Ten after a long stint at Arkansas. He just upset his old program in Wisconsin. That might be one of the more bigger surprises, Illinois beating the heck out of Wisconsin, leading to Paul Chryst being fired. And now Illinois has a chance to make a run in the Big Ten West. But they face an Iowa team who has one of the best defenses in college, which is weighed down by one of the worst offenses in college. So this game is interesting to me because it's strength versus strength. You have an NFL caliber running back for Illinois in Chase Brown going against a very stout defense in Iowa. I think just because Illinois is at home, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And honestly, they should have won that opening game against Indiana. This could easily be a game that goes to multiple overtimes just because the score is like 10-10 at the end of regulation. I think Illinois wins and picks up a little bit of momentum as they start to face some of the tougher Big West teams. And I would never have thought I was going to say that about a team that just played Wisconsin. That's all I have for you guys this week. Thanks for watching. As always, remember to like, comment, subscribe. You can find us on Empire, that's AMPIRE Media on YouTube. And follow us for updates on the Washington Commanders as they look to right the ship on the season with the John Keim Report. Look for updates on the Washington Capitals with All's Caps, hosted by former Capitals defenseman Carl Alsner and AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Follow all that and more on Empire Media at YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, guys, and as always, enjoy the games.